Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Administrator Issues and Updates on March 31st, 2026. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning. Commissioner West is out of the office on military leave. Commissioner Schrader is out of the office on personal leave. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Gary. I want to introduce our first agenda item for the day.
Yes, thank you. The first item is Canby Ferry fee waiver requests. Presenting is Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development.
Good morning, Chair Roberts. Commissioners, again, congratulations. I'm part of your 1,400 linear miles of roadway system in Clackamas County. You own a ferry as well, and we operate a ferry. And we are here to have a discussion about some adjustments to some minimal fees, a one-time ask for two public-facing events. So essentially, we've been approached by, let's back up and make sure we're clear about this. Canby Ferry provides ferry service for cars and or walk-on participants as well, and or bicycles. For motorcycles, bicycles, and pedestrians, it's $3 a trip across the ferry. Two groups have requested a fee waiver. One is the Ride and Roll, which is a motorcycle charity event supporting the Sergeant Mad Dog Watts Veterans Foundation. It's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization asking for one way, so it's not a return trip, just one trip across. Essentially, their intent is to raise awareness and support for veterans services. And if you look at their website, they've got a number of different entities they invest in or partner with to provide services to veterans. The second is Canby School District. They have requested a fee waiver for their third grade students during their annual local history field trips. The requests are April 28th and 29th of this year, with multiple crossings between 10 a.m. and 1:30. They provided us, they've been good partners to provide us a schedule about when those events may take place. There are 6 schools participating. It's about 20 to 38 students per crossing. Staff believes the waivers, approval of each of these waivers will provide positive community exposure and an opportunity for local youth to learn about the history of Clackamas County's transportation services. The impacts to the ferry operation are minimal at the times proposed. So with that, you have a recommendation here from staff to approve these, but we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Questions, comments?
Sure, I move to approve the waivers.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the Canby Ferry fee waivers for Ride and Roll and the Canby School District field trip. And Commissioner Helm has seconded that. Any further discussion?
Only that I'd like to say thank you for bringing us something easy.
No problem.
And I would say, what a wonderful cause.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for doing that. I think it's really giving back to the community. So thank you, Dan. So with that being said, Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thanks again, Dan.
Thank you. Next is City of Sandy Transit Building Grant Support Letter Request. Presenting is Philip Mason Joyner, Deputy Director of the Department of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead, please, Philip.
Good morning, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. Hopefully another easy item for you this morning to keep that trend moving. The City of Sandy has approached us with a request for a letter of support for a competitive grant funding opportunity. This would help support their project that they've been working on to support construction of a new transit maintenance bay and operation building. To date, the city has secured $1.2 million. They're seeking additional funding. The total project cost is $4.1 million. This would go a long ways if they're awarded to help with this project's completion. The facility will support the operation, maintenance, and long-term sustainability of transit services that are operated by the city on behalf of the county. Our Social Services Division and H3S partners with the City of Sandy on a couple of important transit programs, the Mount Hood Express Service and the Village Shuttle Service. So this would provide vital services for our residents and visitors up on the mountain. And we are asking today for your approval that Chair Roberts signed a letter on the commissioner's behalf and that the city can include that letter of support with their grant application.
All right. Any questions, colleagues? Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
More of a comment, and I just want to just say that I appreciate our small transit providers. I think Sandy has been a great partner, as has Canby and others. So I strongly support the letter, and I just want to just kind of, again, do a shout out to our small transit providers. We've been working together at the C4 table way back when we formed a subcommittee for them to work together to help make connections into not just this, for example, the city of Sandy, but connections into the rest of the county. And, just to do a shout out to Sandy, recently they opened a line from Sandy to the Clackamas Town Center, way out of their city boundary, as part of those connections. I'm really just tickled with the fact that our small transit providers are working together under these circumstances of tough economics, but they're providing the services that people need, and this will help ensure that they can continue that in the future. So, Chair, I move to approve the letter.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Savis has moved to approve the letter as presented. It's been seconded by Commissioner Helm. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the poll?
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. And Gary?
Thank you. Next is request to reschedule public hearings for Ordinance 02-2026, which is the public land corner fee, and Ordinance number 03-2026, the county internal auditor. Both of these are second public hearings, and we need your permission to reschedule them due to canceling your prior meeting. Jeff Munns, Assistant County Counsel, will present. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. In addition to those two, there's also Ordinance 04-2026, which is amendments to Chapter 2.03 Hospital Facility Authority that was also, along with the other two, initially scheduled for April 2nd, 2026 for the second public hearing. So all three of these ordinances need to be reset for their second reading and the public hearing for consideration for adoption to April 9th, 2026.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mounds. Any comments? So it looks like there's no motion needed today. Unless there's any other concerns, I'll now formally announce we will have a reschedule the second public hearing for the ordinance on 02-2026 and 03-2026 to April 9th. And we'll...
What's the third one? Because we didn't have that in the notes, Jeff.
Yes, 04-2026, amendments to Chapter 2.03 Hospital Facility Authority.
04...
2026.
Okay. And I'll add that on that one is
Please.
04-2026.
All of them for April 9th, yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
We'll set that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. You have several. Andrew will lead you through these. Andrew, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I have 3 advisory bodies for your consideration. The first is the Public Health Advisory Council, staffed by the Health, Housing, and Human Services Department, which currently has 2 members eligible for reappointment due to term expirations. These members currently serve as the council's co-chairs. The recommendation is as follows: Yvonne Smith, to a second term ending April 2029, and Yanu Knox, to a second term ending April 2029. The board could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any questions? All right. May I have a motion then?
I move to reappoint Yvonne Smith and Janu Knox to the Public Health Advisory Council.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Helm has moved to reappoint Yvonne Smith and Janu Knox to the Public Health Advisory Committee. It's been seconded by Commissioners Savis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next advisory body for your consideration is the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, which is staffed by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. It currently has 1 opening due to a vacancy. Recruitment opened in January of 2026 and closed in February of 2026. 2 applications were received and 1 is recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows: Henry Epstein, to a first term ending March 2029. The board could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? How about a motion?
I move to appoint Henry Epstein to the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Helm has moved to appoint Henry Epstein to the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board. It's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, do you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, what is the final advisory body we have to look at today?
The third and final advisory body, Mr. Chair, is the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, staffed by the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. It currently has one opening due to incumbent resignation. This position is reserved by state statute for an elected city official, a city manager, or other city representative. Recruitment solicited applications directly from cities in the county. 2 applications were received, and 1 is recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows. Glenn Wachter to a first term ending March 2030. The board could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
I move to appoint Glenn Wachter to the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Helm has moved to appoint Glenn Wachner to the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll for us?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Gary.
Next is Willamette Falls Locks Authority funding request. You have a request from the Willamette Falls Locks Funding Authority. The Clackamas County helps fund the authority operations, and the request is for a financial contribution of $120,000 from Clackamas County. A quick history, as you know, the Willamette Falls Locks was the oldest operating continuously multi-chamber locks in the United States, opened in 1873, but for most of the last 30 years, Congress slowly stopped giving funding to operate that locks, which was operated by the United States government. There's a process now, finally, after decades of work, including Clackamas County's efforts, that the locks will be transferred from the federal government to this authority to then maintain and operate the locks afterwards to help maintain that really connection on the Willamette River, because the river's at different levels and it's a great path that many businesses use. So we are a member of the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. The county has given significant financial contributions over the last 15 years on this effort. It's been on your legislative agenda for many, many years. So with that, the request is $120,000. You most recently gave $120,000 over 3 years that ended in 2025, and that came from lottery dollars. So the request for you again is to help maintain the operations of the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. Other local jurisdictional partners are also being asked for funding. And I must say, I request you reject this because you already gave $120,000. You told them at that time you will give no further funding for this effort. However, more funding is needed. I'm not sure if this means the end of the authority. I don't think so. I hope not. But it could mean that the authority doesn't have the funds to operate. If you were to authorize this, I recommend it come from lottery dollars, not general fund. And if you do that, you would have to give up some of the funds you've already earmarked, mostly for business development grants. That's where most of the lottery dollars are now going, and to maintain the Economic Development Office. So I'm sorry this is a hard decision for you, and I'm recommending you don't accept this, but it's your decision to make, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, I've been here ever since the mill closed, and our, the effort related to the locks and trying to get that opened up. Participated in meetings all along the way to see this happen. I know you're right. We made a lot of investment, and I know related to the locks and related to Willamette Falls, the governor, awarded the locks a heck of a lot of money.
45 million.
Millions. And at the same token is, I am aware that there are factions, I guess, I'll just put it that way, or different interests about the future. And I think I don't think anyone does not want to see the locks open, but I think there's a lot of things that are intrinsic or tied to one another in such a way that I think I feel I'm overdue for an update. Where are we headed, right? I could possibly get to contributing to this with lottery dollars, not general fund, maybe perfectly clear, lottery dollars only. But I really want to know that we're on a trajectory towards, cooperation and some kind of, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Or are we just going to be compromising the $120,000 in a sense that there might not be an outcome? So I'm looking for a measurable outcome, and I think we're due an update, frankly.
Thank you. Commissioner Helm?
Yeah, I think that I remember there being if I'm not mistaken, a $45 million contribution. And do correct me, anyone, if I'm wrong, but I did read through, and I know that they're way behind on this project. And I do understand there's shortfalls in money, and I know that things have been getting more and more expensive as well. I am concerned with our budget shortfalls and where we prioritize our funds going forward. So I would say at this time, I'm not on board just until I find out what their funding sources are and how close they are to opening this. Yes, and I did, the packet included a lot of history on this that helped, but our budget at the county level is stretched very, very tight right now. So I'm not inclined to approve it.
Great, thank you.
I can answer that. So the $45 million from the state legislature was to the Willamette Falls Trust. That is a separate effort from the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. All in the same area, but that's not for the Locks Authority. That was for the trust.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the concerns my colleagues have. First of all, I've been sitting in with Gary on some of the budget stuff, and I have to step up and say that, boy, our general funds don't have any kind of ability at this particular point in time. And so any dollars would have to be used out of those lottery dollars to help support that. I do believe it's important, and it can provide a lot of economic impact. One of the things that Tom Bernard, who was the owner of Wilsonville Sand and Gravel, and used to run all the barges up and down the river. And I know that on the upper Willamette that they don't have the ability to get equipment up there. So I think for a number of reasons, people that have had landslides, and the only repair that can be made from the water needs that equipment, those big barges, and to get up there. So I think it is important to get this open at some point in time, and I think that our dollars, I think that we're using them very effectively on economic development for the businesses. I get pretty excited about how that's helping businesses in our county, and I would probably be more entertained to looking at perhaps a reduced amount. So that we don't devastate what we're already doing, but yet perhaps help in some way. I'm optimistic and believe that the economy and everything else is going to turn around. But right now we're in the midst of some challenging times. So I guess what I really would want to kind of know what kind of impact we would have to those dollars that are being used, and have a further discussion about that. Make sure, because I know that has been a huge success, and so perhaps we can get a little more information about that. And I've recently been assigned to this. I've attended one meeting, and I asked a lot of the same questions, and so I think I don't have a lot to report back to you at this time, but I think there's some folks on that board that perhaps we could have present or come and talk more about it.
May we invite them to come and present to you to answer your questions, give a full background before you make a final decision? Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We will do that.
Is that all right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Chair, one last thing, if I can. I just appreciate what's in the packet. I see the timeline. I see that they want to, you're anticipating opening in 2029, 2030. Not much information on what the financial path is. I want to be sure that there is a viable path towards finishing, completing, and doing this. I do see the economic value, and I think the allotted dollars are the appropriate dollars, but I know this board is committed for economic development, and moving product, through the locks has been something that goes back over 100 years. It's important, and I know that we've all personally put a lot of energy. I remember several trips to Washington, D.C., even the Pentagon, to meet with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in their offices in the Pentagon to try to move this forward. I appreciate our federal delegation that have contributed, our senators and Congress folks. So this is a huge lift, and I think it's worthy and due time for an update and hopefully shine a light on how we get there financially.
All right. Thank you. All right. I think we have a consensus on that.
We'll bring back a presentation with the authority staff, and then after that, you can decide what you'd like to do.
All right.
Thank you. Final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
All right. Commissioner Savas, you're up there.
Oh, that caught me by surprise. That's pretty sudden. I have been really busy. I'm out there. I have been, as I mentioned earlier to some of you, been kind of watching and talking to folks regarding the PGE Tonquin project in the Stafford area. I've been talking to people about short-term rentals because we're going to be there, this week, Gary? We're going to be up in the mountain?
Tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow. So we have a lot of things happening. I'm pleased by all our opportunities with regards to how we are being received as a board with regards to our economic development efforts. And as I shared with the chair earlier, continuing to receive a lot of positive input as far as how not only has the county delivered and are we working well together as a team, but how well the county is working with our partners. So I just wanted to say that just feels that we're in a real good place at the time. Of course, we're always going to have challenges, and we're trying to work with our constituents. I will let you know that some of the issues that are the committees that I've been working on lately that are going to start up, new ones related to transit, related to how Metro or Transit's represented at the JPAC meeting. So those meetings are about to occur this week, I believe. And so they'll be ongoing. So there's a lot of things that are in the works. And there's also, no surprise, but I just want to let you know that the governor apparently is trying to construct a work group of non-elected officials to initiate the conversation about or towards a bipartisan transportation package. So I don't know what that really looks like. I got that briefing about that. There was an article in the Oregonian about that, but I'll let you know that as we look forward that the state legislature and the governor's office are going to be focused on a solution for ODOT, and hopefully there's some of those things are tied to some of the urgent projects out there. And I have been, and the board, just to let you know, just going back to transit moment for a minute, that is that our citizens out there, out of their paychecks right now, are paying an employee tax for transit, which is new as of 2017. And we were supposed to get a service for that, right? Fee for service, essentially. Granted, there was some of those dollars were flexible to some degree, but in times of, we're in a situation now where the opposite is happening. We're getting less service for the dollars we're paying, employers are paying on their payroll tax, and also what employees are paying are seeing nothing for that, or very little for that. So I'm just really concerned, and hopefully maybe we can have a, in the future, not in the immediate future, but some kind of a work session or a town hall to tackle this, because transit right now is a very hot issue around the region. Our partners in Washington County and Multnomah County and here in Clackamas are all over this. Our mayors are concerned about this as well. So I see a lot of movement in this regard, and I'll do my best to keep you all apprised. And Chair, I know that you have opportunities to meet with the mayors. They have brought that up, and so you'll probably hear some of that. But by all means, just let you know that if they have any questions or concerns, we're all willing. And I just alert you that I see an opportunity for more coordination and collaboration with our cities. So it's not us or them, it's really us as a county and cities and mayors. So when that conversation comes up, please convey our efforts to work with them.
No, great.
That's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Helm.
Thank you, Chair. Thursday, I know probably all of you have met with Mayor Wilson from Portland, and I had lunch with him on Thursday, listening to his pitch. I will say I give him a lot of kudos for the work that he's done in a very short period of time, and I know that he's trying to take care of a problem that has been going on for 10 years at least. So that's a discussion we all need to have at some point coming up, I know. His positivity is infectious, I will say. It's I'm proud of the work he's done, but I think the people in the city of Portland are still waiting to see some of the results of that. So we had a great lunch. Thursday evening, I attended the city's dinner out in Estacada, and the city gave a nice presentation on the work they've been doing with their water treatment plant and also the other things they're working on out in that area. They served us a very nice dinner from a new barbecue food cart that just opened out there called the Red Barn. So if you love some good charred meat, that's the place to go. It was wonderful. Friday, kind of tagging on to what Commissioner Savas said, I attended by Zoom the House Bill 2017 Transit Advisory Committee meeting. I have grave concerns for Clackamas County. I can't even tell you. They use the word equity a lot and equitable, and I have yet to see where there's any equity in this for Clackamas County. I was rather quiet, I think because I was so stunned by the maps that they were showing. And this is something I want to talk to you further about, and also want to talk to Jamie Stasny on how to approach this, because there's going to be bigger transit deserts than we have right now. So, and yet everyone in the state that pays the payroll tax is paying for this. So, very concerning to the point of being disturbing. So I know that they are trying to shine this with a light that addresses their shortfall in funds, but at the same time, there's got to be a better way to make this more equitable for the citizens of our county. So that's something we need to work on. Yesterday, I did a ride-along with a friend for Meals on Wheels.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, it was interesting, and I got to see the back room there at the Milwaukee Community Center, what's going on. The people there are very passionate about it, and they rely on the volunteers to deliver these meals 5 days a week. It's a great program. But anyway, I'm really glad I got to do that, and thank you, Lisa, for your time that she spent with me yesterday. It was great. She does a great job there. And then, yes, tomorrow evening is the short-term rental forum up at Resort at the Mountain. I'm looking forward to that. My hope, not only just personally, but as a commission, is that these people have a lot of concerns, valid concerns. I want us to not just listen, but I want to find ways that we can resolve some of their issues. I don't want this to simply be a listening session. I want to close the loop on it. And I think it's really important that we do more than just listen, that we find ways to come to some agreement on how we can alleviate some of their concerns. I understand a lot of them, and I think there's a way to address it, especially with the software program that's being used. It's just very cumbersome, and that's what we heard on the first Zoom meeting that we had was it's not very user-friendly, and we're making it harder on them than it probably needs to be. So anyway, we'll work on solutions. I think there are things that we can do, but it should be an interesting forum. So back to you, Chair.
All right. I know we all have another meeting to get to, so just a couple quick comments. And I think the first one to follow up on, again, we've been meeting with Mayor Keith Wilson, met with him yesterday again, and I know that Gary and Mr. Williams, we also spent a few minutes catching up on the issues. And I think that that I just can't emphasize enough so much that as a region, if Portland doesn't do good, it impacts us, right? And I would say right now, we have an opportunity where we really are trying to work together to solve some of these issues. And I, as you, I love his energy. He's the energizer. He is making a lot of headway. I asked him if he would be willing to come and really present to our board about some of the things that are going on and how are making a lot of progress. I think it comes better from him. Just a few highlights that he made to me, I mean, they've opened 1,500 new shelter beds, that no one will be left on the streets if they want a bed right now. And they're assisting anywhere from 500 to 900 people a day on day centers. And he also talks about what they're doing to clean the city up. And I'll be honest with you, I heard what he said, but I want to go check it out myself. And I know a place on Marine Drive where the bridge is, and there's a nice bike path, which I've used in the past a lot. And I drove over there and checked it out, and it was all cleaned up. There were a couple other areas that I know have been chronic issues in the city of Portland, and I went and tried to find those same ones that I knew were there in the past, and it was cleaned up. So I do believe they are making progress. I believe there's, work ahead of us, but I also think it's really important. So I think it would be beneficial for us as a board and even the community to really listen to what he is doing in the city of Portland. So maybe that's one of the things we can set up in the future. And I'm going to not talk about it too much today, but I'll just highlight it. I know Commissioner West is going to be back. I want him to be present. But we had that Clackamas County Healthcare Roundtable. I want to thank the commissioners, you two in particular, because if we had everybody there, it would have to be a public meeting. And we really just wanted to have an open, frank conversation about what are the challenges going on. And I think it was real beneficial. So we really plan on having further follow-up and really looking at some issues that we can work together on. So we can talk about that more, hopefully on Thursday. And then the last thing I'm going to give another shout out to, which yesterday I went to visit the community warehouse. So I actually had to go visit it, right? And oh my gosh, and county council, we had a conversation. I told them you had went there and purchased some stuff, and they were just blown away. I said, yeah, he's was talking about his Amish recliner chair, rocking chair that you bought, and so that's what I think is so important to help support this. So thank you for supporting it, because what they do is that people that are put into housing, they have no furniture. And there is nobody else. I mean, and so that's what this group does. It'll be a further conversation for us in the future, but Washington County actually uses some of their SHS dollars. They're set aside to do that. And I was also shocked at what they told me as one of their biggest needs, that they go through them so drastically, are beds. Yeah. And so I did introduce her to Sherry Heiner down on McLaughlin, who's been a big advocate for helping less fortunate population, and perhaps she can get those at cost or some way to help. So trying to make some connections there. So the place that I visited was at 3969 Northeast MLK Boulevard in Portland. And so they provide all the furniture for people that we put into housing really in the Tri-County area. They also have a location at 9808 Southwest Tigard Street, and they have one at 464 Northeast 219th in Gresham. And so if you would like to donate your furniture, they'll come pick it up. And Tara Wainstall is a tremendous leader in that effort. So I think that's enough for today, and I know we have to get going. So, Gary, do you have anything?
No.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll conclude our administrative issues and updates. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll return at 1:30 for our policy sessions,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon session of the Board of County Commissioners on March 31st, 2026. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner West is out of the office on military leave. Commissioner Schrader is out of the office on personal leave. Roll call, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. All right, thanks, Gary. What's our first agenda item today?
Thank you. First item today is Vector Control District Annual Report and 2026 Work Program. Presenting is Amber Wimsat, who is the Interim Executive Director of the Clackamas County Vector Control District. As you know, Commissioners, you appoint the Board of Trustees for the Vector Control District, yet they are an independent operating ORS special district within Clackamas County. So Amber's here to present their annual report and their work program. Go ahead, please, Amber.
All right, thank you. If there's any questions, I know a couple of you guys have seen the similar presentation before, but I also tried to update it with some of our new programs. Today we have with us Chairman Dan Green, Treasurer Lil Hannah, and our Secretary James Rhodes. We also have Everett serving on the board, and Waylon Martin actually recently resigned from the board. So I'm ready to move on. Okay, so our vision has stayed relatively the same, which is to progress towards keeping Clackamas County free of vector-borne diseases, but how we approach that has changed slightly. Our mission is that of public health focused more so than pest control, which is why we've really been changing how we do some of the things environmentally conscious wise and how we use pesticides. As mentioned, we are under ORS 452, and so we have a permanent tax levy and a local option levy, which we are in year 2 of that. Can we move on to the next slide? So some highlights from this past year. This was my first year serving as interim executive director. We spent around $1,333,000. This is what we have. 4 full-time positions. We recently filled a 4th full-time position in December. So we do now have a biologist on staff full-time. Last year we had 8 seasonals, I believe, but anywhere from 5 to 10 has been pretty typical. We have 13 active vehicles in our fleet with 1 equipped for fogging. That is kind of a contingency plan. That is not something that we regularly do. We had 499 citizen requests. These were people that called in and requested our services. So mosquito treatments, both with larval and adults, was 5,765 treatments, which that was a lot more larval heavy than barrier treatments this year. We had a lot of people on last year, so we were able to collect 40,261 larval mosquito samples and 20,172 adult samples, which, just for some perspective, the prior year it was a little over 1,000. So we had the lab very busy this last year. We also delivered a little over 1,000 gambusia fish to ornamental ponds in places that are not available for active waterways to keep them, since they're an invasive species. In addition, I wanted to include information on things that we tested. We tested 70 pools of mosquitoes, which comes out to 1,754. We send those down to the Oregon Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, and they're tested for West Nile, St. Louis encephalitis, and Western equine encephalitis, which they all tested negative for. And in addition, we had a new source reduction program, which we were able to collect 378 tires from residents throughout the county. And I also want to give a thank you to Gary and some other individuals that helped us get the word out for that as well. So one of the primary things we've been concerned about is West Nile virus. As you can see, it's primarily on the eastern and southern side of the state. That's pretty typical. Q-like species are going to be the most common species that vector West Nile virus. It does play into different birds in the area. They're an intermittent host, and humans, horses are dead end hosts. This is true for West Nile. It is not true for all vector-borne diseases. So as we think about climate changing, whether it's warming, humidity patterns, precipitation, there's ability for other vector species to come into the area. This is just a quick map of the West Nile virus activity in California, just kind of a comparison to last year's. So speaking of invasive species, this is something we're more and more concerned about all the time the past 2 years in 2024 and 2025. Aedes aegypti, which is a species of invasive container breeding mosquito, has been found in Southern Oregon. That was in Jackson County both times, but this has become a big problem throughout California and coming up through Northern California. So in addition to West Nile, we also have things like chikungunya, Zika, dengue, yellow fever, and some additional ones, including an actual parasite that they will also transmit, but that's a slightly different species. So anyways, we just want to mainly focus on having a lot of surveillance so we can have early detection if these species do start showing up in our area. So with that, to help manage these species, we want to make sure that we're using pesticide when we need to use pesticide, but there's a lot of other things that plays into that. So helping coach people on how they can prevent mosquitoes from breeding in their backyards, around their homes, because especially these invasive species will breed in very little amounts of water, as small as a bottle cap. And that can produce hundreds of mosquitoes. So by coaching people on what different plants they can use, how to get rid of these water sources, and what services we offer is one way to kind of help the community be agents of change for themselves as well. So moving forward for 2026, I wasn't sure at the time when we were doing this presentation. Last week, myself, my field manager, and a third-year returning seasonal technician were able to attend the American Mosquito Control Association. It was held in Portland at the Convention Center. It was a really great opportunity to meet with other district managers, and the Oregon Mosquito and Vector Control Association, which I'm also serving as vice president of this year, hosted the American Mosquito Control Association. So we were able to volunteer at a booth and do some fundraising for their programs as well. They also kind of set the gold standard for integrated mosquito management. So it was a really great opportunity to get some more training for staff. In addition, another opportunity is we're planning on doing a second tire drive again in September, since there was good success with that last year. And this is again another way to help reduce those container breeding populations that are really prone to transmitting disease. So the goal of our program is to mitigate the problem, not to completely extirpate. And just a little note for some people that their mosquitoes are also pollinators. They're important for biodiversity. They're a big part of the food web. But what a lot of people don't understand is that not all species transmit disease. It's only the females that bite, and not all species bite humans. So it's really important through our program to help understand why these are so important to the environment, but also understanding why we need to manage them for both public health and socioeconomical factors, with them being a nuisance species as well. All right, thank you.
Right, chance for questions. Any questions from my colleagues? Go ahead.
Yeah, could you, I see the, I don't know, the capital plan, the work plan for something like $1 billion. Can you talk about what's in that plan?
Yeah, in the work plan, so we're focusing on how an IMM starts is we really want to ramp up our public outreach, making sure that we're doing things that we typically do, the fair, other different public outreach, working with our public outreach team. And with that, we're also going to do the source reduction, both through the tire drive and then also helping coach residents. And then along with that, we hire, like I said, 5 to 10 seasonals every year, and they're the ones who regularly monitor different zones throughout the county. And while they're out there, they use our field seeker program, and when they find little sample mosquito populations, both adults and larval forms, and in addition treat them when needed. So this is going to cover personnel services. It'll cover various contractors that work with us to facilitate getting the pesticides. And did you have a question about a specific area that you'd like me to touch on?
Yeah, I
more?
have a follow, and the follow is that six, I heard what you kind of laid out some of the detail about what it's going to be, but is that over a 10-year period, a 5-year period? You're not going to spend $6 million in 1 year, I don't think, right?
No, so that included, in that budget form, I tried to update it. So the total requirements, that's includes the $2 million of the unappropriated fund. So that's a reserve fund that we have, so we're not planning on spending that. It looks like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find out where I'm here at. So my math is not doing well. It's around $3 million that we're proposing to spend. There's a lot of, I overestimated in some areas because we're in the process of doing the executive director recruitment. I've been serving as interim for the past year. And also I'm trying to think how to phrase this. In understanding that this is the second time that I've came in to do the budget. Last year, the budget was partially done. As I started to update some of the different forms, I want to make sure that I'm not underestimating in some of the materials and contractual services, because you can see in capital outlay, the only area, it's $150,000. That is all in contingency. We're not buying new vehicles this year. We're not buying a new building. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm compensating for that in some of the materials and services and contractual services, because that's where vehicle maintenance is going to fall. That's where building maintenance is going to fall. So that's why some of those numbers are kept a little higher, because as we're trying to modernize and updating our accounting system, I want to make sure that I have an accurate value for those. So I don't plan on spending that this last year. The 10 months I was on from February to the end of mosquito season, we actually saved the district $340,000. So a lot of that included, getting proper PPE and actually updating a lot of things. I do not anticipate having to spend this, but I also want to make sure I budget wisely so that I'm not running into a situation that either myself or whoever takes over as the permanent executive director, because mind you, I'm also projecting out for somebody else as well. I imagine, depending on how things go, given a couple years, these numbers are going to look much more accurate. And that's just with getting things updated and making sure we have all of our expenses being expensed to the proper categories. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Helm.
Thank you for the presentation, Amber. Help me out. the tire drive is in September.
Yes.
So is that when most of the larvae appear, or don't they appear earlier?
Yes. So last year when we decided to do this, it was kind of proposed to me by PacWest Resources, who helps us with our public outreach. And so we always do the fair in August. And so we kind of thought we'll push it at that time of year. So by having it at the end of the year, we kind of see it as we're cleaning up before the next season. And so this way the tires aren't muddy, and because Les Schwab will charge more for
Right.
recycling the tires if they're dirty. And also our busiest time of year is in the spring.
Right.
So we have more time to let people know about it, get out and educate people at some of the other programs, because we'll also be at the garden fair. And so I think it gives a really good opportunity to kind of set the stage for it and have it to kind of help the following year's problem.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
you.
But it's one of those things, it was our very first year doing it. If it makes sense to do it at a different time, we could totally look at that too. So it's just when it happened to fall last year.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Just a couple comments. First of all, great presentation. Very much
Thank you.
appreciate that, so thank you. A couple questions. So you have citizens call, so if they have concerns, maybe it's somewhat of a wetland or they have a mosquito issue, I mean, what number do they call? And if somebody calls, how do you assess it and then send somebody out? Maybe you could just talk about that if somebody's watching this.
So what we do is they just call either our office phone number, or they can go to our website, thefightthebites.com, and they're able to put in a service request. And so that email is generated and it goes to a member of staff, typically our office manager. And then at that point, we usually call them to verify what kind of situation they have. Once we've figured out if it's mosquito or fly related, we kind of try to see what the problem is that they're wanting addressed. Whether it's a public area such as a park, we will send somebody out there to do an inspection. And so if it's at their home, there's a variety of services essentially that we offer. So if they have troughs or ornamental ponds, we can bring them the gambusia fish to help keep the larval population down. They give live birth, they reproduce very fast, so it's a really effective way for those natural contained areas. We also can do larvicidal treatments to their ponds, or the other option that we have is if somebody's concerned about adult mosquitoes and have a lot at their property, they would call up, and then at that point, we would send either our biologist or somebody who's been trained in trapping in the lab, and we're trapping every house. So if they don't meet the thresholds that we have set, and they're different thresholds for both vector species and then just nuisance species, so it's going to be higher for nuisance species. If they don't meet those thresholds, we kind of explain to them, we don't want to be spraying a pesticide that they can become resistant to, but we would be happy to come back. So this was kind of the first time we've started to do it this way again last year. And this really, it facilitated a conversation with people about, we're happy to keep checking in with you. We're happy to offer you these other solutions, but we're not going to irresponsibly put pesticide in the environment because there's so few different active modes of pesticides that we don't want to come to a point one day when we do have a disease outbreak and have nothing to treat these mosquitoes with.
You kind of touched on my second question, this gambusia fish. So talk to a little bit more about that. I caught you just say that. So you plant those in different areas and then they help take care of the mosquitoes. Can you just explain that?
Yeah. So they're similar to guppies as they give a live birth. But since they're non-native to Oregon, we have an agreement for vector control districts throughout the state with the Department of Fish and Wildlife that we can transport those. So if somebody calls, we have a field technician take them out there, but it's very, very important that there's no possible way they can get into natural bodies of water. So if the pond happens to be too close to a creek, or if there's any outflows, we're very mindful of that because there's some pretty strict repercussions for putting these into natural bodyways because they will destroy native salmon habitat and things of that nature. So they're a great resource, especially for people who have big cattle troughs or in the middle of a pasture, but we would not deliver them to somebody that, there's just other options that are not really harsh on the environment as well, as far as, biological larvicides and things of that nature, that we wouldn't want to put fish in a place that's not a responsible place to put them.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Great presentation. Thank the board for being here as well. I'll just tell you, I'm one of those guys that mosquitoes love me, and it seems like they always bite on my ankle.
I
don't
know,
why.
I get that.
But I took away a message here today, and that is rosemary. So I saw that was one of your plants. So I will be planting more rosemary in my house. So see, all these, we're going to have to make sure we kind of get that out. So
Yeah.
great advice. I really appreciate everybody's hard work, and thank you so much. So I think we need to really adopt this plan as submitted, correct, Gary?
There's a motion for you to
Yeah,
make.
so I would turn to my colleagues if they have a motion for me by chance.
I move to accept the 2025 annual report and the 2026 annual work plan as submitted.
Second, but I do have a comment I'd like to make afterwards.
All right. Commissioner Helm has moved to accept the 2025 annual report and the 2026 annual work plan as submitted. Commissioner Savas has seconded that motion. And Mr. Savas, you have a comment?
Yeah, and that is, in my earlier question, I'd like to get more understanding of the money allocated for the work plan, that 6.2 million. Is that going to be, again, 1 year, 5 year? And maybe how those dollars, where they're going to be assigned to, right? What categories? I see the work plan there, but there's no monetary connection between what's the objectives are of the work plan to the dollars that cost. So just no rush, but just like to get a better idea of that. And if that 6.2 can last 10 years as a 10-year work plan, then okay, that's great. If it's 1 year, that sounds like a lot, and you won't have any reserves for a big event. Otherwise, right? So it seems to me there's probably a strategy there. I just like to better understand it.
Yeah, and this is a form I had somewhat updated, but it is kind of an antiquated form that's been in the work plan previously. We are working on, we're going to have our budget committee come April, and so there is a lot bigger breakdown to different areas. So that's a good takeaway, to maybe have that a little more broke down for when we do that as well, but I can also get that information along when we have that finalized too.
Okay.
And then I was really surprised to see tansy on that list of things to plant around your house, because I go pull on my tansy. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Invasive for cattle.
Yes, as
Yeah,
well as, and horses,
do that,
and
right.
yes, other farm.
Excuse me.
Interesting.
All right. With that being said, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next session is property disposition, updated policy and procedures. Presenting is the team from Transportation and Development, Dan Johnson, the Director of Transportation and Development, and Sarah Ekman, Assistant Director of Transportation and Development.
Good morning, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. My apologies. We are here to share with you some adjustments we're looking to make to the policies related to real property and our property disposition program. Just for the sake of the public who may be listening to this, who aren't familiar with this process, I want to be clear. We are not assessment and taxation, but these are properties that come into property resources possession through foreclosure, through assessment and taxation. Essentially, after 6 years of failure to pay property taxes, there's a legal process in which a foreclosure is executed on these properties, and they come under the ownership of Clackamas County. Our role in that process is to take these properties and get these properties prepared to get back on the tax rolls, sell them, liquidate them, and get them on the tax rolls to meet the various needs and objectives that we have to facilitate these property transactions going forward. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Sarah, though, briefly to talk about the policy adjustments under consideration today.
Good afternoon. Hi there. So work for property disposition program was quite different prior to 2023. If anybody was around at that point and familiar with it, there was Oregon revised statutes that drove how we process properties that came in via tax foreclosure. In 2023, the Tyler versus Hennepin County Supreme Court case came out that changed how surplus proceeds from the sale of tax foreclosed properties are processed, handled, and distributed. So the old way was that counties could retain those surplus proceeds for administration of their program, and then if there was excess, it would be distributed to taxing districts who were impacted by those tax foreclosures. That changed in 2023, and we're operating on a new basis now where anything that's surplus proceed is distributed back to the former owner, and the county is able to retain direct costs, management costs to make itself whole, but then everything else goes to the former owner. Additionally, that Supreme Court case gave us kind of the direction, but we didn't have a lot of implementation instruction. So the Oregon legislature in 2025 passed House Bill 2089, which gave us more direction on how to facilitate that process. We've also had a class action lawsuit settlement that a certain number of these properties were involved in that has further stipulated how the proceeds from those sales are distributed. And we've been abiding by that. Of course, all of this really necessitated a lot of change. Our policy that was last adopted by the board was from 2018. So as we've moved through all of the changes that have come through these legal actions, we've memorialized how we need to now operate to comply with all of those requirements. So the policy that you have before you today has several changes. It's been entirely rewritten from 2018. We've revised the language to bring it current to the new requirements. We've confirmed the policy that we've decided in coordination with legal counsel is required to be compliant with all of these rulings and changes in the law. And we've changed the cost recovery and fee structure to be able to reimburse the county for the costs incurred for the properties. And these are the fees that were adopted earlier this year through the fine and fee process that the board reviewed and approved. So in the policy, there is an appendix that captures our proposed cost recovery schedule. So as you can imagine, changing from a program where we were able to retain funding for the program, we now have to fund the program through those cost recovery mechanisms, and that's what's been developed and proposed. A few other items to note, to comply with the surplus fund distribution, we now send funding to the Oregon State Treasury. So when a property is sold, those surplus funds are determined after we've calculated all of our costs against the sales price, and we send that money off to the state. They run it through their unclaimed property site. So if you've ever gone to that to see if you have unclaimed property, you can now do that if you had a tax foreclosed property. We have shifted and are intending to sell our properties as is, and that is the most expeditious way to return them to the tax rolls. So that practice is well established in the real estate community, and we feel that it's the best way to get them out the door and meet the timelines that we have stipulated under these legal requirements. We've also shifted that a former owner may request to repurchase their tax foreclosed property at any time as long as the county still holds the title to it and doesn't have a pending sale on it. So that provides an added layer of protection to those former owners to be able to come in and repurchase their property and not experience the loss should it be sold. All sales come to you for approval. That happens through a variety of processes, so maybe a surplus property declaration, which we do when the properties come in from assessment and taxation. And that's when you give us your approval that those properties are not needed by the county and we can proceed with selling them according to these requirements. The other change that has occurred is transfer requests are now handled the same as a sale. So former law allowed us to transfer properties, retain them for public use, or transfer them to other public or nonprofit partners. That now has to happen the same as the sale process, so that the property is given the most opportunity to recoup surplus funds for the former owner. So that's a summary of all of the changes that are in the policy before you today, as well as the cost recovery schedule that we've attached.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, with that being said, is there a motion?
I move to approve the updated property disposition policy and procedures as proposed.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Helm has moved to approve the updated property disposition policies and procedures as proposed. Commissioner Savas has seconded that motion. And any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sarah, thank you for your hard work. Nice job. All right, Gary, we're moving on.
Next session, ZDO 289, Zoning Development Ordinance Diagnostic Report. Presenting is Transportation and Development. Dan Johnson, the Director, Karen Burig, Long Range Planning Manager, and Martha Fritzie, Principal Planner. Go ahead, please.
Apologies for the quick change of seating positions, but to give room for those folks who have a more detailed understanding of the discussion before you today, we invited Martha Fritzie, our principal planner, one of our many principal planners that we have, a couple principal planners that we have, two principal planners that we have. Thank you so much. Yeah, perfect. Half of our principal planner pool is here today to share with you discussions regarding ZDO 289, the Zoning Development Ordinance, the Diagnostic Report. And I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'm going to hand it over to Karen here in 1 second. But I think first and foremost, I'm going to go back to the strategic plan that you approved. And the plan that you approved was the county will conduct a review of all development regulatory processes to minimize burdens, provide an effective and timely permitting process for the community. The discussion that you're going to hear today is one significant step in that process. One of the single biggest regulatory responsibilities Clackamas County has is through our land use permitting policies and practices. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Karen and Martha, and they can kind of run through the presentation for you.
Wonderful. So good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Karen Burig. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager, and it's great to be with you here today. So over the past month, our team has brought forward several different projects that impact the zoning development ordinance in a variety of different ways. There's the minor amendments package that you heard about previously that are addressing some near-term changes. There was the presentation on the clear and objective standards, which really is taking a deep dive into the guidance for protection around our natural features. And then in addition, we have been working very closely on the Transportation System Plan Update project. And I bring this project up because ultimately at the end of that project, we will also have ZDO amendments related to our transportation standards that we're bringing forward. And so for today, however, we are here to talk about the ZDO Diagnostic Report project, which is different in that it's a comprehensive assessment of how the ZDO functions. And it is focused on the urban area, so we want to be able to talk about that a little bit more. But its purpose is to identify ways to improve usability, as well to align with other state mandates, those that aren't as immediate as the ones that are in the minor amendment package, as well as to identify other ways that the ZDO can be streamlined. And so this project concept was brought before the board originally in August of 2023 when we talked about it during the Long Range Planning Work Program, and we requested to apply for a grant. So this is a grant-funded project, and we have been working on it since 2024. So as Dan noted, it's really important to recognize that the ZDO is the primary regulatory document used by the planning and zoning planning and zoning staff and the public to communicate about the county's rules about land use. So with that, one of the things I did want to comment on is that during the project, we've also referred to it as the Urban Zoning Development Rules Assessment. The ZDO Diagnostic Report is sometimes hard to get your hands around, but what it really is. But we were really doing this assessment of our zoning and development rules. And so it It includes a compilation of recommended improvements that we can make, and there's also going to be an action plan that's associated with it that will help us look into the future of like, how are we actually going to make these changes? And so your packet today includes an executive summary of that ZDO diagnostic report. And so I'm going to pass it over to Martha, who is the project manager, and she'll give you a high-level kind of view into what we're expecting in the ZDO diagnostic report.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, good afternoon. Martha Fritzy. I'm a principal planner with the county's planning group. And so we have been working on this for quite some time. I can talk about it for hours and hours, but I promise you I will not. Just before I start talking about some of the conclusions and some of the recommendations we're getting out, I want to talk a little bit about process. This was led by a consultant team who were, familiar with zoning codes and had done work like this before, and we thought it was really important that somebody who wasn't always in the code every day really take the lead on this assessment. And through the process, though, we reached out to community members, to internal stakeholders. We talked with groups in planning and engineering and building and economic development, people who use the code sort of internally, and then some external stakeholders, developers and some architects, just to understand what experiences were, to help identify issues, and to also discuss potential solutions. And so as we went through that process, the consultants created this series of technical memos. There's 7 coming, which are essentially the detailed appendices identifying issues and then also identifying some recommended solutions. And then the report itself is a compilation of all of that. And I mean, a lot of the conclusions are not real surprising as somebody who has used our ZDO and has updated our ZDO over the years. Some of the main findings were that there's a lot of fragmented organization. There are some inconsistent design standards that are being applied for not real obvious reasons in different areas where maybe they should be the same. There's some confusion about how we calculate density in some cases. There's definitely fragmented connectivity standards. And then just quite frankly, the way that the ZDO has been updated over the years without doing this wholesale deep dive has really limited its structural resilience. And every time we go in to change something, it's like pulling a string. And so the hope is that in working through some of the recommendations from the consultants, we can create a more efficient, easier to understand, simplified zoning code that helps both staff who is trying to implement this and us training other staff on how to use it, but also helps the public and developers and people on the outside who are trying to understand, and it will help get through the process faster. And so really there's 4 sort of big buckets of recommendations that are coming out of this. One big bucket is usability and clarity, and that's huge. It's both structural recommendations for structural changes to our zoning code, but also substantive. And some of the more interesting ones that I think are more interesting is really creating upfront, creating a roadmap that explains to people how to use the code, creating a dedicated measurement section that explains very clearly how to measure things. You recently had a conversation with planning director we were talking about setbacks and how much time is spent trying to explain to people and trying to understand how to measure things like setbacks. And so the hope is that to create a more straightforward explanation of how to do that. Making a clear distinction between urban and rural uses. This, as Karen mentioned, this was focused on the urban area, partly because of the grant, and partly because we had to focus, that's where most of our development is. And so it became pretty clear that there is often confusion about which standards apply where, and so clarity there is definitely needed, as well as a number of other substantive changes that are recommended. The second bucket really has to do with housing. Housing has been a big conversation lately, and as we dig deeper into our housing standards, and we're responding to all of the recent legislation from the state, it's become clear that there are a lot of good opportunities to simplify our standards for housing, but also just reduce the number of zones. We have 18 urban residential zones, and at least 8 of them are really not substantively that different or functionally that different. And so there's definitely opportunities there to streamline. And also to move toward the recommendation is to move toward a more form-based code, which I don't even pretend to understand. I'm still learning about now, but it really largely has to do with flipping your regulatory scheme to regulate more toward the form and bulk and scale of development rather than these extraordinarily long lists of very specified, specific uses. It's not that you wouldn't regulate uses, but the focus is more on the form of what's being built and a little bit less on what is in that building once it is built. So we're going to do some work on how actually to do that, because that's something other jurisdictions do, and we have lots of good examples, but that's something that we are not as familiar with. Similarly, with employment lands, we wanted to look at barriers to development, both for housing and employment, and identify ways to address those. And so we also have way too many urban commercial zones. I think there's an opportunity to consolidate some commercial zones and also really take a look at how we are identifying uses and allowing uses in various areas. And then the last big bucket has to do a little bit, is more in Karen's wheelhouse. It has to do with improved neighborhood connectivity and standards for connectivity. Some of those do need to respond to some changes under state law, but just add clarity and make sure that those are consistent across the various zoning districts. And then there is definitely a need to identify and be clear about triggers and thresholds for certain transportation improvements, but also certain design standards. It's not real clear in our code sometimes, or it's just not distinct, or there's not a difference sometimes between standards that are applied to this extraordinarily large development versus just a really small, very minimal impact development. And so it may be appropriate to actually distinguish between those things. And so those are some of the big things that are coming out of this. There's a lot more. The report is well over 100 pages long. It will talk about a lot of background and recommendations. And so we are expecting to have the final report soon, in the next week or two. And we will distribute that to people who are interested in it. And then basically what we are doing is we're taking all of these recommendations and the action plan, and we are going to sit down and talk about how we implement these recommendations. And so what that will mean for you is that there will be likely a couple of packages of code amendments coming in the next couple of years. And we will map those out and try to figure out exactly how we're going to do all of that work. This is a little different than some of the packages of code amendments, that certainly the one that's coming to you, the minor and time-sensitive code amendments, which are real small items that don't involve a lot of policy decisions. I would expect whatever comes out of this project are going to be pretty substantive changes to our zoning code. And the hope is that they're for the better.
Yeah. And I guess sort of in conclusion, this is information only today, but we really wanted to provide you with an opportunity to understand the background, because as Martha was saying, is some of these changes structurally will be significant, right, in how our zoning code is structured. And so we will be spending the time over the next couple months to really understand what's the best grouping of packages that we can bring together. We're hoping to connect with some of our community partners to be able to get their input. A lot of people, we did have some, a small and focused on the urban area interface with our CPOs, but we've had a lot of interest in understanding what this project's about. So we'll get input as we're developing those packages. And then there are other projects that we want to make sure that we're coordinating with. And as I mentioned before, kind of the work that's being done with the transportation system update, making sure that any type of standards and changes that we're making are being recommended as a part of this kind of are able to be woven into those particular recommendations. So with that, we're definitely open for questions.
All right, Commissioner Helm has a question.
Well, I'm super excited about this, as you know, and I know it's hard work. I know you're kind of rewriting a lot of stuff that's been out there for a long, long time, but I think it's exciting changes, and simplifying in any way possible, I think is helpful to our community, our constituents. One thing I want to ask, and I'm not sure where it falls into this, but let me just say from standpoint of where I live out in Damascus, we have a couple of areas, Orchard Lake, Windswept Waters, right? They're very separated from Happy Valley. One is actually Happy Valley, one area is not. One of the complaints I hear is that there's no little mixed use area in the middle of that for people to walk and have a cup of coffee or get their hair cut or something. Same at the top of a hill in Happy Valley, right? Where those people don't want to have to, they can't walk down to a coffee shop. I mean, they're just like looking for something that's neighborhood friendly. Will this allow for, is this in here anywhere?
So I'll say a few things, and then Martha might add. The intent of this particular process isn't to rezone or change,
Right.
like look at an area, do we want to change the type of uses? But we are kind of under the employment type of section, and with the form-based code piece is, are there changes to what the allowed uses might be in these districts we already have that might open things up to something different? Now, so I'm not quite sure if it's going to be the answer that you're looking for, but I just wanted to be clear that it isn't about, okay, do we have the right zoning district and we're going to change this from residential to neighborhood commercial.
Right.
But it's more looking about the uses within those districts.
Okay, well, that falls under improving neighborhood connectivity, so that's sort of kind of versus just strictly transportation, right?
Yes, correct.
Just like,
Yeah, and the other things that are in that, like improving connectivity, has to do with standards around the way walkways are
Right.
on commercial
Right.
development, and how we better connect to different areas like the residential area, so people, when they're actually on those commercial developments, can get around.
okay, all right, thank you.
Would you say, though, that, I used to be a planner, so I can say this, the form-based code does allow more flexibility than we've generally historically seen within the codes that have a lot of specificity around specific uses.
Right.
And so it's those, I'm not sure those examples that you shared, those two, like Orchard Lake and Windswept Waters, because they came in through a developer proposal.
Yeah,
They're-
yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you look at this form-based code, it allows a broader dialogue around uses that can go in those areas that may not be pinpointed by Joe's coffee shop and this, but it may say
Right.
small retail, neighborly focused kind of elements, things like that.
Right,
So-
and I do believe that when we did all the City of Damascus planning, we were focused more on form-based code than we were on the specific type of businesses. It was more of that look and feel. That's
Yep.
what we were going for, is what do we want this community to look like? Who goes in there is what, I think the business community drives that in a lot of ways. So I think that's where that all comes, come full circle here, right?
Right. I just want to say thank you. It is a big lift as I'm listening to you,
Yeah.
and a long process, and just want to thank you both for your diligence and hard work on this. Still a long ways to go, but we're getting there, right?
Yep.
So thank you both. And this is, as you mentioned, this is information only at this
Correct.
time. So,
Yep.
so with that, we'll conclude this.
Chair?
Yes.
I did have
I'm sorry.
one question. I'm looking at the bullet that says inconsistent design standards. Is that solely form, or is that part of our challenging conversation we had a couple weeks ago with regards to some of the mandates coming from the state?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. With regard to some of the what?
It's the design standards. I think it gets down to some of the nuances hang on, quit moving. Go back up.
No, he's scrolling so fast. Wow.
It's the structural resiliency component that you see to some extent. And so you have you may have small design standards inconsistencies that are like between our residential zones that may differ from one to another. And I mean, it's interesting because when we work with the development community, the primary thing that they're concerned about, or even any citizen who's doing a project of any size, is just consistency and accuracy and specificity. And those things are kind of the things that I'm so bummed. I've always wanted to do this. I wanted to bring the ZDO here and show it to you. It is ginormous. And the attempt here, this is a discussion that we've all been having, including Jennifer Hughes, the plan director, about going back and somewhat reimagining this code to just make this code a little bit smaller. I mean, it's simple wins, and it's got a lot of components to it, a lot of plannerese in it. It's how do you kind of, and that's good stuff. And don't take it poorly, but it's just how do you simplify that to some extent. So. Okay.
So if I could also jump in, I mean, some of that, there's a lot under that bullet. It's what Dan said, and some of that is really just understanding for various types of development what design standards you want. Because even among different commercial zones, sometimes there's just slightly different standards for things. And there really might not be a good reason for it. And so it's part of this simplifying and streamlining and really trying to keep things in there that have value and that are meaningful, and that you're not creating a different standard just because you forgot it was over here in a slightly different way.
Okay, thank you.
And allows for flexibility, I would think, too, yeah.
All right. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Dan. And Gary?
That is it for today.
You sure you don't have anything else on my agenda?
Not for today.
Are you complaining? Do you want?
No, I'm ready at this point. So we'll go ahead and conclude our business meeting for today. And obviously, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you all for joining us, and we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody.